Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to BMSS Radio, where we bring you the hottest topics from the popular holistic website, bodymindsoulspirit.com. My name is Michelle Walling, and I'm a holistic life coach, webmaster, and guest writer for bodymindsoulspirit.com and our partner site, n5d.com. And you can find out more about how to book a holistic life coaching session with me at www.michellewalling.com. And you can also find all of my websites, articles, and radio shows, as well as videos through that site as well. It kind of serves as a hub for everything that I do. And special thanks to Greg Prescott of N5D Radio and bodymindsoulspirit.com for sponsoring this radio show. We have a great database of holistic topics at our new ebook store, and that's n5dshop.com. Check that out. And we also have a platform, a community for people who would like to promote their products that have been approved by N5D, and also people who are looking to find holistic products and services, and that is n5dmarketplace.com. Now, you can find both of those links on n5d.com on the right-hand page, the right column. And you may want to check out the most recent few articles on bodymindsoulspirit.com. And one of those is how to stop a migraine instantly. Then I wrote an article recently called, Are You Blessing Your Food the Wrong Way? And you may want to check out proof that the human body is a projection of human consciousness. Now, we have a search button at the top right-hand corner of the homepage, and you just type in a few of the words to the title, and it will come up for you. So let's get right into the show. Aage Nost was born in a farm in Norway, and after graduation from agricultural college, he operated the family farm for several years. While still a teenager, he learned hypnosis from a magician in Europe. And by the age of 25, he had learned several languages, studied science, including metaphysics, and different forms and theories of spirituality. Aage is a commercial pilot and flight instructor and owned a flight school for several years. Aage has been involved in numerous projects over the years, including teaching a subliminal dynamics mind management course. He created and operated the Freedom Civil Rights Investigation Service to help people with legal problems as well. He created, wrote, and published The Constitutional Liberator, a monthly newsletter covering controversial political issues and the truth behind the truth, health issues, and banned medical cures that work. Besides many topics the mainstream media do not dare to touch, he co-wrote a book with author Patricia Ress of Omaha, Nebraska, titled Alien Encounters in America's Midwest. It featured hidden government documents proving the government cover-up of the UFO issue, NASA prints of building and structures on our moon, and personal testimonies from people who have had contacts with extraterrestrials. He has hosted television and radio shows, and in July of 2003, he was interviewed by BBC Television of England for a TV documentary titled Time Trip, discussing the possibilities of and practical applications of time travel. He's the author of the book Spiritual Science, Higher Consciousness Thinking, and How to Access Universal Consciousness. And it even had a star named after him. So, what a wonderful lifetime of achievements that he's had. Aage, welcome to BMSS Radio.
Hi, hello there. This is Aage.
I'm sorry about that brief pause there before the show got started, but we'll get right into information here. I'm so excited to talk about universal consciousness today because really in my past, what I've learned to do is try to pull back and see things from the biggest picture possible. And I have this huge puzzle, and I have pieces here and there, and as you go to universal consciousness, you begin to fill in those pieces of the puzzle. So what I really want to do is let's talk about your mother encouraged you ever since you were a little boy to question everything, and that's so huge in learning the path that we need to follow in this lifetime. And this led you to tapping into universal consciousness to find out the truth of our reality. Would you say that there is much knowledge that has been withheld from us and that most things are not as they appear?
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, we have bits and pieces like in a puzzle, and of course, the more of the puzzles we start putting together, the more puzzles show up on the table. So we'll never get done with this. We'll just eventually we'll have a whole puzzle that covers the whole universe. And this is something that the powers that be, they have their own agenda. And one of the agendas is not to have us educated to the point where we start understanding our position and our purpose in this universe, because that will probably have them lose power and lose influence. So I would say the best thing that we can do is just like my mom did. She started destroying the box that we live in. And she said, question everything. And whenever I told her something that the government had told me, and says, well, yeah, are you sure that is true? Oh, well, I don't know. The government said it. You know, I heard it on the radio. Well, no, don't believe everything. So this is something that I think everybody should do. They should start destroying the box. I've been living so far outside of the box now, I don't even know where the box is anymore. And I think that the more people start thinking, the more things and important revelations will come to them. You think, and then you go, just like you did at the beginning of the show, go into silence. Maybe it had a purpose, that very first one. That was maybe just the first little silence here, because silence is so important. Like you mentioned before the show about this lady, told her to go outside and sit by a tree. That's what the ancient masters from the Far East always told you. Go sit under the tree and meditate. If you sit up with your back against the tree, you ground yourself. And meditation while grounding is so important.
Absolutely.
It opens up doors. Yeah.
Don't you think that there's a program that gives us a fear of silence?
Yeah, we are programmed through religion very much on that. And when I talk sometimes to a born-again Christian, I mention meditation, and he says, oh, that's of Satan. I don't want no part of it. Well, yeah. Of course, he don't know that.
Everything's backwards, isn't it?
Yeah, and he don't know, of course, because all they have is the book, and they don't know that Satan was invented in 325 in Constantinople, Turkey, when they got together and created the first draft of the Bible.
Mhm. Well, division, divide and conquer.
And it works every time.
Mhm.
Because when they divide you and feed you with emotion, you will always choose the emotion. Religion is all about emotion.
And yes, it's fear-based, and you're not good enough. You need to repent for your sins and pray to somebody outside of yourself for a savior. Yeah,
absolutely. And they feed off the mind. And while we're mentioning the mind, let's just talk about the mind a little bit. Most of us has figured it out by now that not everything is the way that it appears. And a lot of the things out there don't make sense. But it can. And let me give you something to think about. And then I'll ask you a question. So let me first set the stage for the question so it'll be easier to understand for everybody. Science has found that matter and energy cannot be created from nothing. That's a scientific fact, kind of. Then again, we have some of the sharpest people on the planet, like Stephen Hawking at Cambridge University in England and most other theoretical physicists. They are saying now that their equations using quantum physics on the blackboard prove this whole universe was created from nothing. If this whole universe was created from nothing, and everything in it was created from nothing, including you, What are you?
Nothing.
Yeah, I talked a little bit on purpose there because I wanted people to think on this one. If we are nothing, what is that? It is so strange. This is a tough one to wrap our heads around because we see things. Every time we open our eyes in the morning, we see things. We are walking into stuff, and if you're outside, stub your toe, it hurts. And all of these things, they got to be something, right? So, what is it? And when you think about that, okay, so it is nothing. Quantum physics proved this is nothing, but what can it be? Well, the mind is what it's something, but that is not physical. So what we see is not physical. And there's only one thing that can create that, and that is a mind-created thought. Thought can bring this into focus. It can make you see things. It is somewhat similar as hypnosis or a dream. I've been doing hypnosis a long time, not much lately, but for many, many years. And if I put you in a deep, comfortable chair, talk to you for 20 minutes, put you into a deep hypnotic trance, and I told you that when you open your eye up, you will see a big elephant standing in the middle of the living room next to you. When you open your eyes up, you would see that elephant. You could reach out and touch the trunk on the elephant, and you can feel it. You can smell the elephant. But there's no elephant there. So now we start getting a little peek into the mind. The mind created the elephant. And the mind also creates everything you see around you. It is somewhat similar to a hologram. Because now we have actually, science has created holograms that is almost to the point of being self-aware. There's a computer running the show that shows the pictures that we can see, three-dimensional. And this is something that we have holograms that has been around for about 50 years or so. We've been working on holograms in science labs everywhere. What if you think about a hologram that has 14 billion years to develop itself? Do you not think that should be a little more elaborate?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now, do you think that there was a virus inserted in that computer?
Yeah, I think there are several viruses, and one of them is government. Another one is religion. I have a saying, it staggers the mind to think how far humanity would have reached by now was it not for government and religion.
Absolutely. And the politics, pharmaceutical, medical, education, all of these things are the viruses that have been created by thought and by a very brilliant plan for domination and control. And, what we're finding ourselves doing now is awakening to the fact that all of that not only is there to collect resources, energy from us, but also to keep us under hat, so we don't stop the flow of their draining our energy sources, because they don't have the ability to get them any other way. So we're coming down to realizing that if everything around us is created by my mind and by thought, who's controlling our thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's go back to the mind again. What is the mind? Well, most Newtonian scientists, they would say, well, mind, there is no evidence that mind even exists, except for that it's in the brain. The brain can create a lot of things. Well, yeah, it can. The brain is kind of like a hardware on a computer. The mind is kind of like the software of the computer. And a very small portion of the mind is operating through the brain. The mind is not the brain. And we're never taught how to use this mind. It's a phenomenal tool, but why were we not taught how to use it? You remember back in school when the teacher told you, read this chapter and memorize it because tomorrow you're going to have a test on it. Oh, I hated that.
Hated that too. I used to make cheat sheets, and I used to write really, really small on a little corner of piece of paper and hide it under my hand because I thought how ridiculous it was to sit and do repetitious things to learn something, to remember something that I would never have to use anyway. So I would cheat.
Yeah.
Oh.
I tell you though, the mind is such a phenomenal tool. I have an analogy here, and that is that let's say we took Mr. Average. That could be an accountant, a physician, a construction worker, absolutely anything. Put him in the left seat, the captain chair, on a Boeing 747 airliner, and told him, let's go flying. He wouldn't have a clue. He would spend at least 20 minutes before he could even find the electrical master switch. Now, if we gave him a year's worth of training and then put him back in the captain's chair, we crawled in the right seat and asked him, let's go flying, he could take us flying because now he had the proper training. See, the same thing with the mind. We are given this phenomenal tool, but nobody showed us how to use it. They didn't even show us how to remember, because the teachers don't know how to remember. They think it's automatic. No, it isn't. Remembering, actually, that's not quite right. The remembering is automatic, and it is perfect all the time. It's the recall process that is all screwed up. We were never taught how. And there is ways to remedy that. 20-some years ago, I was teaching this mind development course called Subliminal Dynamics back then, and now it's ZOX Pro. That teaches us how to assimilate information out of a book at 75 to 100,000 words per minute with 95% retention.
Wow.
And the reason it is 95% is because we miss pages. Once in a while, there's two of them stuck together.
Mm-hmm.
And when we
so that would be 100% recall. You know, I was just thinking the other day, I have a very strong ability to speed read a book and to understand overall what the book said and pick out what I agree with and what I don't. But it seems that I can't retain that. So how would I work on that?
We would use triggers to bring things out. And there's another thing too, and that is that this is what I teach in my book. Teach you how to use the mind in a way that normally people don't. And they can tap into that universal consciousness, and they can tap into the universal storehouse that is housed in the brain. See, the thing is, when you read something, let's just dwell on this because this is something everybody can use. When you read something, you read for a while, and then suddenly in the middle of a sentence somewhere, another thought pops into your head. Oh gosh, did I forget to turn off the coffee water? Okay, now you have the thread of everything that you were reading was interrupted by your coffee water.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think, well, no, I think I'll probably turn it off. And then you're back to reading again. See, as long as you are reading something, you have a string of information going into the brain. And then you break that. You go to the coffee water. And now you resolve that problem, and then you go back to reading again. Now a new string goes into the subconscious, but it is stored in a different place. So that's why you have break in memory. And also, when you are, let's say you are tensed up when you read, that creates problem in the storage. what you should be reading, when you should be reading, you should be relaxed and in a more of an alpha state of awareness, because that's where the information goes in and it is organized much better. And hold concentration, because concentration is fairly simple once you learn how. Education system, first of all, they don't know how, and if they knew, they wouldn't teach you, because that can create wonders. Einstein was clocked. Albert Einstein was clocked having total concentration for about 47 minutes. I've had times when I've been close to that, because we are using methods that is very simple. And
well, I have
once
a
you
question.
train this, yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, I think we have a slight delay there, so I'm sorry if I accidentally cut you off there. My question is, when you retain this information, is it retained in the mind, which is connected to the universal consciousness, so you can always go back and tap into that, or is it contained in the brain?
When you, it's called subliminal photography or photo reading, or there are several terms for it. When you do that, it goes into the brain first, and then it goes and gets stored also in the universal consciousness, because the gate to the universal consciousness comes through the pituitary in the brain, and that it goes out and is everywhere at the same time. So, because there is no time. At that level of consciousness, there is no time. The past, present, and future is just stored in this universal mind.
And so that's how you can go in and remember, by accessing that universal mind.
Yeah. But what is in, it's just like a computer too. Once you type something into the computer, it's there. You can go back and get it. The brain is the same way. You can also go into the brain and retrieve it. And then you are subject to all those break in information, the coffee boilers and all, that just prevents you from remembering properly. But if you go beyond that to the universal consciousness or the universal mind, there is no break. You can just have it, because it is all around you, in you, and it is you. So all you have to do is to latch on to the concept, and the whole understanding comes.
And isn't that interesting how most people, the very first thing, the most important thing that in my opinion, that people need to know is who they are in order to move forward. You really need to know who you are and where you came from. And if you only knew who you were and stood in that power, then you would have access to all the answers within you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When you ask somebody, who are you, they can say, well, first thing they do is to give you their name, and they say, well, I'm an accountant. That's not who you are. That's what you do. We are an immensely powerful spiritual being that is having a temporary physical experience. Because that physical experience was created for a purpose. And the understanding of that don't really, for most people, come early in life. It comes a little later, after you start getting some experiences, reading some books and watching some movies or videos or listening to shows like this. That's when the real understanding starts seeping in somewhere. And you start understanding, wait a minute, I am not just an accountant. I am more. And then the hunger for more knowledge start coming to you, and you start reading, you start studying. Once that hunger has reached you, it don't take long before you can go all the way to illumination in one lifetime, definitely.
And we have already reached illumination in other lifetimes. Some of us have, and we came back here with that knowledge, but every time we came back, we forgot. And then we forgot how to access it. Now, in finding out, in trying to remember how to access universal consciousness, in your book, you also mentioned that the mind-created universe that we live in is separated into three major levels of existence. the physical, mental, and spiritual. And of course, that plays right into body, mind, and spirit. And with each having several levels of vibratory existence within them, or they can be called parallel universes. So tell us a little bit about what the listeners need to know about these three levels of existence and where we are now and how we move to where we need to be.
Yeah, this is a tough one, and in the regular education system, they don't tell you much about this either. We know the physical because we see it, we feel it, we smell it, we touch it. It's there. And we are starting to kind of scratch the surface a little bit on the mental science, because hypnosis is part of it, photographic memory is another one, and we're starting to understand some of these things. But when it comes to the spiritual science, we have no clue, mostly. And because we are where we are, what we see and experience around us is approximately maybe somewhere around 1% of the total light spectrum. Up and beyond that, there is another 99% volume of light and experience. And in all those 99%, that's where all the other levels of existence live. Let's say we are on a level down here at the bottom, one level of existence. Slightly above us into the astral world, or parallel to us, is more physical existence. But above us, there's the astral worlds. That in the lower astral worlds, we still have time there. But up and beyond that, there is no time or space either. Everything exists in the present as potentials for creation. So when we start going up the vibratory scale, we go into the higher vibrations, we end up with what we call, we live in a four-dimensional world that is, length, width, and height, and then time is the fourth dimension. So beyond that, you got fifth dimension, you got sixth, seventh, and you go. It gets a little fuzzy the higher you get, because they kind of overlap, and they seem to. You go back and forth between them, and it gets fuzzy. But the fifth dimension, that is where you have both. Excuse me. You have the three dimensions plus time, and you also have the awareness of everything that's below you in vibration, including your own. That's your fifth, and you have access to a lot more information, knowledge, and experience. So up and beyond that, it gets fuzzy. But for every level, there is parallel universes that you cannot see into because they are separated in vibration. And that's why, you see video clips of UFOs flying around, and then suddenly you have a little flash of light around them, and poof, they're gone. That's when they accelerate the vibration of the whole bubble they are in to outside of our physical capability of seeing it. You've probably seen those UFO videos too, haven't you?
Oh, I've seen them in person.
Oh,
I've seen
excellent.
the UFOs in person. Yes.
Yeah.
We have night vision goggles here, and there's a portal out here in Sarasota, out on the water, and we see them quite frequently. Sometimes there'll be nights that we see nothing at all, not even any satellites, which kind of what makes me wonder, where we are in that level of dimension when you're not even seeing any satellites, or we're just being shown a holographic projection for that particular night, or what? Because there's always satellites, but we can't see them. Maybe we're in a different level of the dimension where there are no satellites. But so we've seen them come, and we've seen them power up, and we've seen them shoot off into another reality. So they're definitely like us, multidimensional beings, and the more you expand your consciousness, and the more you tap into your universal consciousness and your source energy, the more you begin to traverse other dimensions sometimes without even realizing it. And you find yourself in a particular situation scratching your head going, I wonder why we can't even see satellites tonight.
Yeah. Do you have a fourth generation
Yes.
night vision goggle?
It's either third or fourth. It might be third.
That's a good one.
But
That's
it's not,
one.
it's not just a monocular. It's definitely, they're great.
Yeah.
They were pretty expensive, but it was something that we treated ourselves to a couple of years ago. And we had a special, we have a friend named Missy Hill who has a radio show herself, and she hooked us up with this person who provides these. So, we, this really opens up your mind to be able to see things that can interact with your consciousness when you speak to them. I know James Gilliland has Isetti Ranch by Mount Adams, and he has people, he invites people out to have these UFO watching parties, and they actually communicate back and forth with the ships, and they power up and shoot off and do all kinds of things. So I'm very much into that aspect, but really it goes further. It goes deeper than that. It goes into, that could just be an aspect of us. That could be us and not even a ship. That could be actually us, a consciousness roaming around that doesn't need a spaceship anymore,
Yes, in fact, we are creating those ships also. And when you talk about us being all, we are part of the all. I prefer to compare that to, let's take that there's no separation between you and me at that level of consciousness. But compare that to, let's say if you took a tree and put that in the middle of a field, a tree that expands itself by the root system. And let's say you plant it in the middle of a field. 5 years later, you're going to have a whole bunch of small trees standing around that tree. And 20 years later, you're going to have a bunch of bigger trees in the middle of that field. They all look like different trees, but they are not. It's the same organism with the different and separate expression of themselves above the ground. It's the same thing.
Exactly. That's another part of understanding who you are, and who your neighbor is, and who your loved one is, and how if you knew that, there would be no war. There would be no reason to treat someone else with disrespect or with judgment.
Absolutely. And that is what we are. Well, the powers that be, they try to prevent us from thinking in those terms as much as possible. It's a shame, but...
Well, really what causes us to do that is the separation that they've created, and the third dimension creates that separation. And fear. Fear of, not being successful, not being on top, not being able to climb the ladder of success, fear of failure. And the ego has a lot to do with that. And so why don't you talk a little bit about what the ego is, and how do we, some people say they want to get rid of their ego. And I think in the third dimensional, fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional blend construct, I think that we still retain a little bit of our ego. We just learn to let the higher consciousness run the show and allow the ego to create the personality so that we can be individual. What do you think about that?
Well, ego has its place as long as we control it. And the ego is created by the mind. It's seated in the mind, and it is projected into the physical, and it's housed mostly in the subconscious mind. That's where the breeding ground for all the subconscious mind programs and all these negative things we are thinking about all the time. And we have a hunger for this and that, and we have thinking of ourselves first, and the ego is overlaying pretty much everything, but it has its place because through ego we have scientific advances, we have all kinds of different creations that we would do if we did not have an ego. Because doing something and completing it and feeling good about it, that is a form of ego.
Mhm.
So we have to have it in a physical construct, like you said. We have to have it to a certain point. It doesn't have to be to the point where it is at the expense of someone else and hurting someone else. It could be for the benefit of someone else.
In
then
service.
The ego would be good. Ego can have its place, and if we totally got rid of the ego, we'd be sitting in a cave somewhere meditating 24 hours a day. You know what? It's just, okay, spiritually it would be all right, but what would we learn?
And how would we grow?
Yeah,
I mean,
how would we grow?
That's the reason why we had this physical experience and experiment in this construct, this whole creation made out of light, this matrix that was created, was to have experience, and then the viruses got inserted to take over that. But if we didn't insert ourselves in some kind of experience, we would be energy sitting in no time and twiddling our thumbs. What do we do now? Hey, how come I'm by myself? Where is everybody?
They're sitting somewhere else twiddling their thumbs. So no, we gotta have
Let's go find them. Let's go play.
Because they have more fun that way too. There is fun creating things, and it sometimes we come here, we take on this body for that purpose, and everybody has a purpose. It don't have to be grander. It can be a very simple thing. Let's say that you had something in a previous life, that you were with someone that you are with in this life, and there was something you were working on that you couldn't work out, you didn't get it finished, so you come back again, and you just, for that particular thing, you came back to see if you can resolve something. Or it could be something that came back to do great things for the holograms of everybody. A different purpose, but there always is a purpose for everybody. We just don't know what it is sometimes, or most of the time.
Now, let's talk about life purpose. How do people find out what their purpose is?
Life purpose?
They may have more than one life purpose, really, but their main interests usually are right in front of them, and they don't even recognize it.
That's right. We don't see it because it's so close, usually. And life purpose, there is a way to find it, and that is just ask. Because most people don't even ask, what is my purpose in life? What's the meaning of life?
True.
You know that old question? No, most people, they joke about it, but they never really sit down in meditation, is grateful and show gratitude for what they have, and then ask the future, what is to come and what is my purpose? If you ask that question over and over again when you meditate, you're going to find it. It will come to you. Because once you ask, remember, it's even scriptural. Ask and I shall receive, I think is what it says. So we should ask, and we will find.
Yes, that is the way that, that's another way of saying, to have intention, because creation involves, first of all, knowing that you are a creator, and then intending that you remember how to create, or if you want to manifest, you use that intention, which is usually asking. And it's so funny because being a holistic life coach, one of my favorite things to do is to help people with their life purpose. And you don't, it's so easy for me because I just know how to ask the right questions to find out what they're interested in and what's been going on with them and what their background is, and it comes to me almost instantly because, like I said, sometimes it can be right in front of your face and you can't even see it. You just need somebody to help you realize that, because everyone should be able to find out this information by going within, but we haven't been taught how to go within before. So and when you learn what your life purpose is and what you hoped to achieve while you're here, when you begin to play that role, things begin to become magic for you and kind of fall into place, and you experience those synchronicities, and then you know that you're on the right path. So
life is so much more fun once you meet yourself and you discover who you are. Man, oh man, they open doors. The hangar doors that's coming open for you. You can see so much more. And the beginning, I think, for most people come through meditation. That's a good place to start. It's not the only place to start, but that's how I started. And if people start doing that, in the back of the book, I explain much more about meditation. And meditation is so easy. It's even simple. Because
a lot of people try to make it more than, make it difficult, or try to get other people to teach them how, when in fact one of my favorite places to meditate is in the shower or in the bathtub or while washing dishes, even while driving. It's not the same kind of meditation that most people think about because, I don't close my eyes. But a lot of my meditation is open eye meditation, and then I meditate right when I wake up. I don't open my eyes. I don't do anything. I just lay there and allow everything that came from my dreams. I kind of go over that in my mind and allow any messages to come through. And before I go to sleep, I say my intentions for safe travels and do all my gratitude and everything, and just lay there and lay still for a while. And just sometimes we get our information, doesn't come like a voice. It doesn't come like that. It comes as like a download that will unfold maybe the next day, and then things will just start happening. You'll be like, wow, I just thought about that, and then it'll happen. So that's really what meditation does, is it allows you to hold the space to receive the downloads that will somehow unfold in your life to help guide you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do it in the morning too. Right after I wake up, I just don't open my eyes. I just lay there and meditate for a while. That's a good time because you are still down in that alpha state of awareness. And the same thing when you go to sleep or when you lay down, then just whatever you want to have happen. Or if you have a conundrum that you're working on, you can't figure it out, just ask yourself, I know what the challenge is. When I wake up in the morning, I will have the answer to it. And you say that over and over as you fall asleep. While you're sleeping, your mind will be working on it. It will be reaching out into every corner of the universe, and it will find the answer somewhere. It could be in a location physically that is different from you, or it could be in a spiritual location, in another person's mind. It could be anywhere, and you'll bring the answer back. So you can have it in the morning or the next day. It'll just pop into your mind.
Yes, I agree. I think it's simple.
Yeah, and this is what billionaires do. They design the future before they even go do anything. They design a project in concept and detail. So they have it in their mind, and then they go out and do it. They don't start nothing on paper, yes, maybe, but in start creation of it beyond that before they have a full understanding both in concept and detail. And a lot of times they don't have all the information, but they know they will get it while they are working on it. So, and that's why it's so important to control our mind ourselves. When we direct it in the direction that we want it to go, because it has unlimited capacity. Let's take health, aging, something like that. It's phenomenal, the capacity that the human body have for even age. I did some digging around and I found immortality is actually possible. In 2009, the Nobel Prize was given to 3 American doctors for discovering an enzyme that reverses the aging process, and nobody seems to know about it. Immortality, yeah, but what is immortality? I don't know. This is a tough one to wrap our heads around, because the definition of immortality, I don't know what it is, but to me it would be not ever die.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not for everybody, of course, because if you think about it, well, let's say that you've been working at your job for 9 years so far, and you're already bored stiff. How could you handle another 200,000 years at the job? But it don't work that way.
Well, we know that we never really die anyway, because everything is energy, and we leave the body and we either come back again or we go back to source. Go do something else.
But of course, I'm talking dying. I meant the physical.
Mm-hmm.
And I found there was a Chinese that not too long ago he died, but he was 256 years old, and it is all backed up by Chinese government documents. For his 150th birthday, he had a letter from the government congratulating him. For the 200th birthday, he had the same kind of letter congratulating him for his age. And 250, he had the same letter again. These are, as well as other documents from the government explaining, yes, he is 256 years old. So it is possible. In the mid-1950s, there was a Chinese university professor that came to New York on an exchange program. He went out with some colleagues one night to have dinner, and he got food poisoning and died. Well, by the time he got to the morgue, they started asking questions and looked through his papers, and they said, no, something's wrong here. So they called the ambassador and said, something's wrong with this guy's papers because he's 154 years old. And the ambassador told them, no, he is 154 years old. And they asked the ambassador, how can that be? Well, first of all, he did not believe he could die. And for the second, he only food that he ate was Chinese herbs and berries.
Wow, that says a lot about food.
Oh, yes, volumes of it. And the 256-year-old guy in China, his master was over 500 years old. Now, that was not verified by the government document, but everybody in that village knew it. So, if you look at that, the next question is, of course, what did the guy eat? Well, I found out or most of what he ate anyway. And that is one of the big things that he was eating was astragalus. They ate it in large amounts together with wild ginseng. And then he also ate something called lingxi, goji berries, he shou vu, gotu kola, and probably a few other things. But the most important thing is astragalus and the ginseng, because when they are used together, they get a multiplying effect. And science has figured out now how aging happens. It's got to be close to 15 years ago now, I got a document from one guy that worked with the Genome Project. He was a good friend, and he sent this thing to me. There was a draft of that was supposed to be released, and it never was. And the title of the draft was, "The Problem with Human Mortality Has Been Solved." And then explained in there, they found the terminator gene, which not really a terminated gene, it's a succession of genes. And they said there was a three-prong effect of aging and dying. One of them was, first of all, it's a genetic disorder, and we have genetic therapy now to do that, and some of that genetic therapy can come through epigenetics, which is basically our thinking. By our thinking, we can turn off bad markers and turn on the good markers. In the book, I explain, a lot about how to do this also. And then there is nutritional deficiency. If the body do not get what it needs in order to rebuild itself and replenish itself, it will be sick and it will die. But the third reason why aging and death happens, it's going to upset some people, but it is because we have a mental disease. The name of the mental disease is religion. And I know that kind of goes against the grain a little bit, but if we think about it, look around us. Look at Christianity, what they did in the past. Of course, they straighten out a lot now. But Muslims, they still cut people's head off, and they treat women like you know what. And these things, they are ingrained in us because as we get older, we get probably sickly, some of us, and then we get lonely and we're not as popular anymore, and we get all kinds of different things that happens to us. And religion tells us that when we get old and die, we're going to go to this other place, this nice, wonderful place called heaven. So when you have pains everywhere and you're lonely, and that place start looking pretty good, so your subconscious mind, and you start drawing yourself towards that place called heaven, and that brings you there. That's why the university professor, he didn't believe he could die.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the
That's
reasons
amazing.
why he, yeah.
Well, I believe this is something that we're going to be talking about at our Superpower Activation Conference coming up February 20th. I believe that part of our superpowers that are being activated are the restoration of our DNA, which has kept us from having these abilities that we had before the time of Atlantis. And Aage, I have to admit, for the last 5 minutes, I haven't been able to hear you. I had to call in on my cell phone to be able to reconnect myself. Yes, so you did a great job talking all that time because I wasn't there, so I'm not quite sure exactly what you talked about. But I'm
really?
excited. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm excited to get back into this conversation about what I call the terminology. There's been a lot of terms out there, but what I call rejuvenation of the physical body. And to me, it's our DNA being reactivated. It's also bringing in more of your soul energy, your oversoul energy, expanding your consciousness, remembering how to manipulate this hologram of this body that we have, and by using the template that was formed of creation and the template that was formed for this particular body, and then remembering how to manipulate that and to keep it, this form. And before the time of Atlantis falling, that's what everybody did. And then they went to temples of rejuvenation where their energy field could be perfected, and they used sound and light. And so this is not something that's new. This is something that was taken from us when the thought forms created the virus and the fall and vibration of this planet. And so this planet is she's rejuvenating herself. She's returning back to a fifth dimensional frequency body that is perfected and is healed and is cleared. And she's doing that with the help of the beings that are on the planet because we are connected to her. And we are part of her. When we came here as an incarnation in a physical body, we had to get her approval because she's we're part of her. We joined with her So that's how this is happening, in my opinion. And I'm very excited to talk about not only rejuvenation, but other abilities that are manipulating energy that will give us the higher hand that we need in being able to see the hidden controllers and being able to not be controlled anymore, and being co-creators in this new reality of peace and love. And, that sounds all hippie-ish and 60s, but there's a way to live in a duality plane that's merged from third into fourth into fifth, and be able to hold some semi-etheric body and still be in somewhat physicality to have this experience and this existence, return it back to what it was designed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned that the genetics are changing. It's already happening. Look at the indigo children. There's been done some experiments at UCLA with those, and they find out that, wait a minute, they are not just two-strand helix anymore. There is a third strand being developing. Some of that junk DNA is assembling itself into a third strand. So what you said is exactly proved by science. It is happening right now.
Yes, and I actually have a page on Facebook called The Star Children, and I've interviewed expert Mary Rodwell on my Cosmic Awakening show before, discussing these star children and discussing that they are reminding us that this is real and this is possible. They're holding more light, and they had the ability when they incarnated to somehow skirt around that reincarnation trap that wipes your memories complete. Because they have more strands of their DNA unblocked, they weren't privy to that, and so they're remembering their past lives. They're basically being little time travelers right here in this body, and that's what we have to look forward to. And with that being said, let's talk about time travel a little bit. And one question I have about time before we get into time travel was, you made a comment that the fifth dimension is emerging of the fourth. And I know that the fifth and the fourth are connected, just like the fourth and the third are connected. And I know that we're all multidimensional in the bigger picture, where it's all connected. But is there really time in the fifth dimension, or can you step outside of time and then insert yourself back into time as you wish?
Yeah, there is time in the lower vibrations of the fifth, like the lower astral worlds. There still is time, because that's where ghosts live. And a ghost can see into the fourth dimension or the third dimension where we are, but we can't see there because it's outside of our light capability of our eyes to see with the light specter. But up and beyond that, the time is an illusion there too, and it's kind of like everything past, present, and future is created into a matrix that is sitting in the present, and all we have to do is to latch onto a concept that we or someone else may have thought of and placed into that soup of creation, and we start pulling it back out, and then it unfolds itself into a physical reality. And when we look at that, let's say we want to go back to 1961. There are some experiments now that has been done with quantum physics, and not even that. And they prove that we can actually go back and change the past. And The Field and the Intention Experiment is a book by Lynn McTaggart. And they talk about experiments that they did, went back and changed the past, and it affected the present. So time and time travel, by that one experiment, is proven is possible. If we take it beyond that, then there, depending on technology and mind capacity, capacity, there really is no limitations to what we can do.
Yes, I know Greg himself has had information come to him that he actually has come from the future to affect the future by changing things in the now. Apparently in the future, where he came from, or where the aspect of his soul that, is him that came here, the critical mass wasn't reached, and so it came back to affect the critical mass by providing information so that the critical mass could be reached. So this is a real thing, because it's basically the ability that we've had to insert yourself into a certain place. And the thing is that the dark beings need technology to do this, whereas we have the ability to do it without a machine.
Yeah. Yeah, and the time, if we go into the higher dimensions, the higher vibrations, where everything is sitting there in that super creation, there is no distance between the past, present, and future, so we can access it, and our mind can bridge that. It can bridge the gap between the past and the present. So let's say that we wanted to go back. Let me back up a little bit. Let's say that there was something in the past that we screwed up so bad we'd really want to go back and have a do-over. Boy, do I have my hand up. There is stuff that we would like to change. Theoretically, on the blackboard, this is possible. And there is some evidence, too, that it possibly have happened. Are you familiar with this temple in Abydos, Egypt, where they broke into that temple the first time and they found this panel? It has carvings of helicopters and flying machines. And there's two of them that look exactly like a Cobra helicopter.
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it makes you think, how did they back then, somewhere, we think around 3000 BC, 5,000 years ago, how did they know what a flying machine looking like that looked like? We know that the Black Project of government, they have perfected time travel. We know that. There's all kinds of people that have come forward for it. There's patents that has been filed at the Patent Bureau in Washington that teaches and show how to do it. So we know it is real. And this is probably what was in that temple in Abydos. That was probably the result of someone went back there and visited. If it can be done, what governments do usually is all technology. They don't really involve the mind a lot. But if we did the same thing with the mind, there is really no limitations to what we can do. And then the back of the book, I talk about that in the back of the book, actually, time travel. There is a method for which you can go back and you have a look, or you can go forward and have a look. And it is all in the mind. And in fact, in 2003, when BBC television came over to the United States to create a TV documentary on time travel, they talked to Michio Kaku, which is a theoretical physicist in New York University, and Dr. Green and several other theoretical physicists, and myself. We created this TV documentary in which I demonstrate a small electronic device that I have had some very strange experiences with. And I talk about this in the book also. And some of the things that you may see if you go forward into the future, by the time you get there in linear time, it may not happen. And there is a reason for that, because the future is not locked in stone necessarily. There can be several timelines going into the future. let's say that based on what you have done in the past and what you're doing now, the future is fairly predictable if you don't change your ways. And let's say that based on the past and what you're doing now, you don't like it, so you want to do something totally different. You make a decision today to go a totally different direction. Then you are creating a new timeline from there on if you put effort behind that decision. So now you're going off into a different direction. That previous timeline may continue. You are in that timeline also. Even though there are two schools of thought on that, one of them thinks that in quantum physics they think that possibly that first timeline collapses and it never existed. But from what I saw, it continues and you are in that timeline too. But your consciousness, the one you are aware of, continues in a new direction based on that new decision. So now you have a new timeline where new experiences happen and it can change everything compared to what the past was.
Right. So how do we connect with that future that we want? I mean, is that part of meditation? Is an intention?
Yeah. We can actually design the future in both in concept and detail, very detailed. Let's say that there is something that you want really, really much in the future, something you really want, and then go out, place it in the future sometime. Don't use a calendar. Calendars are worthless when it comes to the spiritual world. These numbers don't exist. But attach that thing that you want into a time-coded event. Let's say a Christmas party or a birthday party, where you see yourself standing up and making the announcement that this has now happened, we have completed this, we have it, or we've done it. So that you also, in that visualization of what you want in the future, you have to include other people. The universal consciousness is not much for selfishness only. It's a giving thing. You got to include other people to have their enjoyment and excitement in it as well as your own. So you go into the future, let's say attach something. Let's say that you're going to have a college degree completed by birthday party in July or something. So now you go, first of all, you do what you can to help it happen, but you go there and you visualize what you want completed. You visualize the graduation certificate, the party when you are graduating, and visualize how it would happen after it is completed. And you don't care how it gets there, because that will be done as long as it is completed at that time. So
you got to make sure that you don't try to control it or have expectations.
Right. That is important, because then you put restrictions on the universe. And they have to follow those restrictions that you put on it. Leave no restrictions all the way up to the completion, because then you have more avenues in order to get there. And then every day you keep working on it to do what you can in order to help this happen. And if you do that, it'll happen. It's just the timelines that you're laying down to that thing in the future. Every day you go back and forth to that to visualize it. You lay down attractor strings through it. These are small strings of light that pulls you up that timeline. And you will end up at that place in that time. When the linear time reaches there, you just walk into it and it is completed. This again is what billionaires do when they start creating major things. They visualize it into it.
It is interesting, and I guess people call that the law of attraction, because you're magnetically attracting that. You created it, it's in the future, and now you're magnetically attracting it to you just from having the thought.
Yeah, because thought In a physical reality, thought is all there is. And that's again why it is so important for us to control our mind, our thoughts, and without interruptions. We should, in the book also, I talk about these 2 mind techniques in order to create total concentration. Boy, would that help you if you go to school or if you're going for college, because total concentration, you learn so much better because the uninterrupted information and knowledge is going into the brain and get recorded in one string and don't get broken up. And when you grab on later on, using triggers to get in there, grab on to that string and you start pulling on it, the whole thing comes out.
Interesting. Yeah. So, in correcting the past, that would include this thing that has been created to keep us coming back and back and back over and over again, and that would be karma. So could you give us, we did talk about how to go back and change the past so that our reality now would be free of that. But let's just touch on that for a second. Karma is basically has been misunderstood a lot. I think what goes around comes around. If you treat somebody bad, I guess in past lifetimes, if you killed somebody, you have to come back again and be killed, maybe by that person or whatever, to have some kind of balance, because we live in a universe that has polarity and it needs to be balanced. But in fact, I think that this wheel of karma was actually invented as part of the control mechanism to make us feel like that we needed to come back and fix that, when in fact I think there's other ways, like forgiveness and things that could change karma. What do you have to contribute to correcting karma?
Oh, yeah. You mentioned one word in the middle of that, and that was forgiveness. That is the safety valve of karma. Because karma is a universal thing. Karma is not only a physical thing or the brain. It is also in the astral worlds, in the spiritual. Karma exists all the way just about up to the top because it is balance. Karma is a function of balance in the universe. When you have done something that does not come from the higher source, the light, there is an imbalance placed into the universe, and it has to be corrected. And if you were the creator of that imbalance, when the correction comes, it will come to visit you first. So if you did something bad to someone, there's an imbalance. And there is, when it was not done by the higher light, so to speak. So now that imbalance has to be corrected. It can be corrected 2 ways. You can go back and ask for forgiveness, and you can forgive yourself for doing it. It is just as important to forgive yourself as to forgive someone else. If you don't forgive yourself, you may still end up stuck with the karma, but forgiveness of yourself and for someone else, that short-circuits karma. Now, that imbalance that is created in the universe, that it will be corrected. So if you do not forgive yourself and forgive the other person for causing the situation, or something similar, whatever caused it, then you will have to correct that imbalance somehow in the physical reality where it was caused. If you are not able to do it and you say die physically, then you may have to come back in a next lifetime to work on correcting it, because it stays with the spark of life as an experience that is not completed. Would that make any sense?
It did, absolutely. So let me make sure I have this whole picture correct. Okay, so individually, one of the best things that we can do at this time is to work on raising our own consciousness.
and that we do that through meditation and through stillness and being that still thing that we are, and by not trying to control the outcome of creation when we put our thoughts and intentions into the future and magnetize ourselves to that, we begin to continue to increase our consciousness, and that connects us with universal consciousness. And once we do that, we forgive ourselves and we forgive others, and we balance our karma, and then the reincarnation wheel gets changed where we don't have to come back again unless we want to. And then what happens is that the timelines for the future begin to converge into less possible realities because the past has been changed, and then we're moving more towards restoring our DNA into that perfected template to where we don't have to get sick and we can't be controlled, and we're always then again connected to universal consciousness.
Yes, you got it. You got it.
Yay!
You are back to your puzzle on the table, and now the pieces, all these pieces, karma and forgiveness and all these individual pieces, you are putting together all those pieces, and they come together not necessarily by you physically doing it, but it's the universe puts it together for you.
Yes, and so just be yourself and allow. Yeah. Yes, a lot of people have trouble allowing and receiving.
Oh yeah. Oh boy, thinking back in my past, I had to do everything myself. I wasn't very good at delegating. If it wasn't done right, I was right on top of it. And no, we don't need that. Sometimes we allow for things to happen, or if we tell somebody to do this or that, give them the chance. You'd be amazed how much ingenuity they will have in order to complete something without you standing there watching them doing it.
So do you think that once we raise our consciousness, does that allow us to break through the frequency barrier that's kind of been what people have called either a quarantine or a prison, a prison barrier? Does raising your consciousness put holes in that overall to where that frequency barrier gets knocked down for the rest of collective consciousness, or the rest of the collective humanity, to where they can then begin to kind of like get triggered to wake up and start connecting back again into source?
Yeah, absolutely. I think also that quarantine that we were talking about, I think it's about broken now, and probably a good reason for that, because there are influences from the outside coming in, and that will breach the quarantine. The acceleration, we're moving in, it takes 365 days of the year for us to move around the sun. And I looked at this not long ago, and from what I understand, it takes 26,000 years for us to move around the galaxy. And every 26,000 years, we move to a region of space which there is this new vibration that we are now moving into, and that raises the vibration of us all, and we will move on to a higher vibration. And there are some, or a lot of them, that will not make the cut. They will be left behind. And this is all in the hologram, because it's part of the game that the spark of life, or the universal consciousness, is playing in order to clean up every so often and separate the ones that has reached the level of consciousness which they can join the big family, so to speak. The ones that has not learned how to murder, steal, and war and stuff like that, they will be left behind in another. They will not be following us. they will be left behind. They may have to be terminated physically first, but they will go back and they will just keep living that and reliving, where we don't necessarily have to do that anymore when we get to that level. The veil is getting very thin right now. Do you know what the so-called shadow people are? You know, when you, the ones you see out of the corner of your eye, but when you look over there, they're gone? Yeah. I see more of those now than I used to, because the outside or the periphery of the retina in the back of the eye, they can pick up higher vibratory light than the center of the eye can. So that's why in the corner of the eye you can see something moving, because the periphery of the eye is picking up that energy of that person or whatever it is at the periphery. But when you look over there, now you have light coming in at the center of the eye, which does not pick up that higher vibration, and they're gone.
And I believe that, you know, the vibrations that we're receiving from the cosmos that's raising the vibrations, it's actually shining the light in those darker areas where these souls are possibly trapped. And, you know, a lot of the people right now that are conscious and are able to see these beings, if you are one of those, you know, basically that's the opportunity to help a soul get back to home, you know, to be released from this dimension. And you can just basically ask for help to the universe to come and release that soul from the place that they've been in for a very long time. And that soul will make the choice to either go back to source or to go to rehab. Basically, there's a place in the heavens or the astral realm that souls are taken, kind of like a hospital, where they can be rehabbed and then choose, you know, where they're going to go from there. They usually have to come back because they got so low in vibration that's why they got stuck where they were in the first place. But so great. So a lot of people are concerned about the people that are left behind. They wonder if their family members are going to be one of those. We're seeing a great distance now between the awakened and the people that are having to live in the same household with people who are not on that level. And, you know, I'm just wondering, you know, it's all about vibration and it's all about your energy and your consciousness. But I was just wondering, you know, some people have a really good heart, but they're just not awake. I mean, they could be very religious, but they don't really, you know, they may pray to somebody outside of themselves. They may give their energy away. They may volunteer, you know, every year to serve meals for the homeless. They do all these things for other people. Are those people, you know, they have a good heart? Are those people going to be like go, but they're going to have, when I say go, we're not really going anywhere. We're phasing in and out of dimensions. But are they going to go and then have us teach them when they have this, all of a sudden they find themselves in another reality, or they see that they're in a different world because things have changed? Are they going to go, or will we be separating even more from them, and they'll have another place to go to play out the rest of their life? How does that work?
Well, from what I understand and from what I've seen is that you don't necessarily have to have a complete understanding of the spiritual realms in order to make the cut to go to a higher vibration. I think it's your own vibration. If you are really caring for other people and you do a lot of good things and you are that higher vibration person, you don't have to have all the understanding of it. As long as you have the vibration, you're going to be moved along. And there may be people that have a lot of the understanding of the higher spiritual realms, or read about it and they understand some of it, but they go out and do nasty things. They might be left behind. So I think there is it is the goodness of the heart that counts. I
do too. I really do. Yeah. We're coming to the end of the show. Aage, and we've talked about so many things. I have one question that I want to try to ask everybody. There seems to be this conflict that's been created between people to try to keep us separate, but it's a real funny topic. Is the Earth round or is it flat?
Well, I remember we are in a mind-created universe. So my mind has created a round Earth because, first of all, I've seen the videos, I've seen the pictures, and I have been at 40,000 feet, and I've seen the curvature of the Earth out the window of the airplane I was flying. So, yeah, it is round.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
That's that's my take on it. And then again, there is a flat Earth. I have no clue where it will be because it isn't where I am.
Awesome. I do believe my explanation has always been that we live in a hologram and you're creating your own reality. I do think that we are in the 3D, we're connected to 2D and to 1D. And in 2D, creation exists on a flat plane. And so in one essence, if you have a flat piece of paper, well, that's 2D Earth. And in the third dimension, you have a three-dimensional hologram, so you add buildings and mountains and things to that. But we're not just 2D and 3D. We're not just flat. We are multidimensional, so you add 4D and you have a square, a box. And, of course, that's the box that we've been shoved into. But we're beyond that. Beyond that is 5D and up to 12D consciousness. And those are various forms of geometric patterns and shapes that allow for more expansion, more creation, and more complex light patterns. So I think that when you get into 5D, you've got, some kind of complex geometric pattern that actually can seem like a sphere. And then you get all of us, all light beings, packed into that sphere, and we look like a star. And so it goes on and on and on. So yep. I think it's, a silly, simple distraction to really argue with anybody about what anybody else thinks, because every person is creating their own reality and has their own truth based on that, and everyone sees something a little bit different than somebody else, although, the ones of us who are raising our vibration see things more together closely than other people. Still, everybody's going to see things a little different. So that was a great little experiment and answer that you provided there. Thank you on that. Now, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we get down to the end of the show?
Yeah, I do have a blog where I write about a lot of these things, and I have a lot of goofy pictures, including hangars and buildings on the moon, and all of the stuff that you're not supposed to know about. And you could go to this blog, and you probably enjoy it. There's a lot of things written about what comes out of the book. And try this website. It's www.aage-nost.com. That is www, then my first name, Aage, dash, last name, nost.com.
And, so AAGE-NOST.com. Great.
Correct, yeah. And
how do people get a hold of your book?
The book is you could go to Amazon. It's on there, and the title of the book is Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness.
Awesome.
And it teaches about the mind, the unlimited capabilities and the real power of the mind, and a lot of the things. It even goes into what Jesus looked like, according to the obscure Roman records and other non-biblical things. So it goes into every corner of the universe, just about. And If you look on Amazon, there is, I think, I don't know, 12 some book reviews there, and they all have 5 stars. So I am very happy about that.
Oh, yes. I myself have been reading it, and I'm about halfway through, and it's very interesting. And I do appreciate you sharing that with me so we could have this conversation today. I think we should have another show on the moon.
Yeah.
And on as above, so below constructs in this reality, and the future of humanity, how we're going to be able to travel with our consciousness by activating our, what some have called our Merkaba, which is our light body vehicle. So if you're up for that, we could do that.
But there's so much more that we talk about. In fact, we could go into creation. How did it happen? What happened at the Big Bang? What about the creation of the physical being we're walking around in? How did that start out 445,000 years ago? And there's so much we could talk on. And I'll back it up with many of the scientific discoveries and things that is there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. And if anybody's interested in the Superpower Activation Conference, you can go to n5devents.com. And Aage, we will be having some of those future conversations here on BMSS Radio, and I thank you for your time, and I really enjoyed our talk.
I did too. This was fun. We need to do it again.
Okay. Thank you. And goodbye for now.
Goodbye.